This is the story of an old text, a very old text even, especially considering that these days publications tend to vanish into thin air just after 2 years or so. This text was published by Management Learning in 1995 under the title The Modern Crusade, Missionaries of Management Come to Eastern Europe. Then, it was considered to be among the most interesting writings published in the journal during the decade 94 to 2004 and published in the book Essential Readings in Management Learning, edited by Christopher Gray and Elena Antonikapou. Recently, in 2019, it was published as part of a special issue celebrating 50 years of critical reflective scholarship on organization and learning. But it is old, and it concerns an old study of mine, a study which was an ethnographic exploration of Polish management. I contacted some Polish managers who were active before the fall of the Berlin Wall, which occurred in 1989, and the shift from centrally planned economies to market-oriented economies and management in the Eastern Europe, at the time known as the period of transition. And at first I was interested in their visions for the future, but as it turned out, it became a prolonged ethnographic study, mainly focused on their experiences as managers before the fall of the Berlin Wall, which was a time dominated by central planning. However, Poland was a special case, a rather special country within the Eastern Bloc. Polish managers, particularly in the 1970s, had a lot of contacts with the Western world and developed both knowledge of how Western management is carried out based on experience, based on their relationships with these Western colleagues, as well as they sometimes participated in management training courses abroad in the West, in France, in Anglo-Saxon countries. But there were also faculties and institutions, higher education institutions in Poland itself, which were focused on management education. So I soon found out that these were extremely competent people. They had lots of experience of managing in 2 different economic systems. They knew how to manage in 2 worlds. They were quite prolific in languages, especially the English language. They had contacts and colleagues all over the world. They were really interesting as a field, and I followed them around in their everyday work after the shift, after 1989, but I also interviewed them a lot about their contemporary work and about the past. On one of these occasions, there was a training, a management training program arranged by Western institutions addressed to these managers. So I was in the audience observing what was going on, and with me as audience sat the managers, my field, the people I was studying, the extremely competent managers. And the teachers were people who came from the West, usually considerably less experienced, who were explaining to the audience about what management is. They were defining management for them. They were explaining how to manage to these people. I consider it, and after a while, it occurred to me that this was a case of pure colonialism. The managers in the audience didn't have a voice. Nobody asked them anything. It was taken for granted that they knew nothing and that everything had to be explained to them from scratch by these much less experienced missionaries of management, as I labeled them in my text, the modern crusaders of management. And yes, that was a long time ago. But this text persists to be cited. It is still my most cited article, even recently, and not just by myself. People read it and they use it in their writings. I think that part of it, the explanation of why it persists to be a relevant text, is that the world of these managers, the one that I was studying, has vanished. It has disappeared. It is no more. It doesn't exist in the discourse of Polish management. It doesn't exist in the media. It is as it had never been. However, what has taken its place, what is occupying all the mental space, is the discourse of the Crusaders, the missionaries of management, the teachers that were training my field, my managers. And yet, the fact that people still seem to be interested in colonialism in Eastern Europe perhaps points to that nothing is as simple as it seems, and that meanings have a tendency to persist and even perhaps come back. Thank you.